I closed the tape on AJ Dybantsa back before he became the #1 pick, and I kept coming back to one question. What's his defining trait? It sounds like the answer should be obvious. Athleticism. Explosiveness. A 6'8" forward who can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. But every prospect who competes for the top pick has elite physical tools. That's the entry ticket, not the differentiator. When we studied Cooper Flagg a year earlier, the answer wasn't athleticism. It was his motor, his defensive presence. The way he guarded off the ball, the way he protected his dribble, and made quick decisions, even when his own half-court creation was still a work in progress. Flagg's body was still developing, but his feel for the game gave him a clear identity. You could project it, even if the jumper never came around. With Dybantsa, I didn't find that same answer, and that's what made his evaluation so tricky. By the time the 2026 draft arrived, the Washington Wizards ended the suspense early, taking Dybantsa first overall. It was the consensus call a bet on the highest upside wing in the class, but the tape told a more specific story. It showed why he deserved to go #1, and it also mapped out exactly what he would need from his body, his coaching staff, and his own development to make that selection pay off. At BYU, Dybantsa's highlight reel painted the picture of a dominant ball-handling wing. But when you sat through full games, a subtler reality emerged. His high-frequency creation didn't come from the top of the floor the way you'd expect from a go-to wing. When he drifted below the 45-degree line without the ball, his presence often faded. He wasn't constantly weaving through screens, wasn't actively hunting backdoor lanes, and his spot-up shooting from three landed below 30%, a flaw that was already on every scouting report. What made him special was the moment he decided to attack. In transition, he covered ground like few players his size. In the half-court, when he got the ball and a runway to put it on the floor, his talent screamed at you. But the value he created, both what he produced in college and what will most likely translate to the NBA, was concentrated almost entirely in those on-ball and fast-break scenarios. This is where the real scouting question took shape. For Dybantsa to justify the #1 investment, he needs to be able to put the ball on the floor consistently and get below the free throw line. And for a big forward, that's the hardest skill to master. It's not just about having a tight handle. It's the combination of controlling the dribble through contact, reading help, and making the right pass when the defense collapses. These are separate muscles, and most young forwards spend years developing them. Athleticism, even the elite first step, the agility, the finishing through contact is more like the cover charge than the main event. To be fair, NBA scouts believed Dybantsa's physical profile would be top shelf, even by league standards. He had touch through contact, and his handle earned comparisons to a young Tracy McGrady. Watching the tape, I don't push back on that. He can put the ball on the deck, his dribble stays low, he can stop on a dime and rise into his jumper, and his footwork isn't raw. There aren't glaring holes in the toolkit, but I still think his body and his explosive habits are a few developmental clicks behind his coordination. His limbs haven't fully caught up to his neurological quickness. The first step isn't blow-by elite yet. That can change as he physically matures if he truly has that kind of ceiling. If he ends up playing at this same pace, he'll need a far sharper decision-making system to compensate. One thing he does get right, he protects the ball. He's not out there trying forced crossovers that invite chaos. He'd rather gather early, initiate contact, and find an angle to finish. It's mature for a young scorer, but it's also built on the assumption that his physical advantage holds up. When that advantage isn't there, his gather timing can work against him. He tends to pick up the dribble a step early, which invites traps and stops his momentum. Once the double comes, his passing is functional, but not sharp. His first instinct is to dribble away from trouble rather than sling a skip pass through the gap, and the resulting outlets float a little too high, a little too slow, lacking the suddenness that a high-usage on-ball forward needs. And then there's the defensive side of the coin. At BYU, Dybantsa was mostly neutral. Not a glaring problem, but not a source of extra possessions either. He didn't take on many low-man rotations or weak-side rim protection duties. His point of attack pressure was mild, and his screen navigation, the hip positioning, the footwork to stay attached, looked like a work in progress. He's not a negative, but he's not yet a disruptor. This brings us back to the Flagg comparison. Flagg's superpower is his brain. His awareness allows him to be a top 20 athlete in the league and still control a game. Dybantsa, at least from what I saw, hadn't shown that instinct to connect his talent to team concepts at either end. That's the hinge point for his future role. If he develops that connective tissue, the off-ball movement, the screening, the quick hit passing, he could bend his game toward the Jason Tatum archetype, a big wing who can create, defend multiple positions, and help without monopolizing every possession. But if that feel doesn't come, his path narrows. He would need his body to be not just good, but top 5 in the league good, to dominate the way his college tape sometimes implied he could. Here's a final, less analytical observation. When you zoom in, Dybantsa's face looks mature, almost hardened. But when the camera pulls back, his body language and his small mannerisms still read like a student athlete. The physical maturity everyone's banking on? It's not fully there yet, and neither is the command of an NBA lead creator. So the question that lingered after the tape, what's his defining trait, now becomes the question that defines his early career. The Wizards didn't just draft a body and a handle, they drafted a bet that the trait will reveal itself and that they can build the right environment to let it surface. If Dybantsa's body catches up and his feel expands, the number one pick will look inevitable. If not, the league is littered with forwards who had all the tools and never found their signature.